Welcome to the most PG-rated discussion of the Deadpool movies you will ever encounter.
Yeah. Two Mormon dudes, active Mormon dudes, are going to talk about Deadpool.
Yeah.
The movies specifically.
Yes. I have read a little bit of Deadpool, the comic, but not exhaustively enough to feel like I would be speaking well of it if I did. Speaking authoritatively, I should say. But we have watched the Deadpool movies.
Yeah. I've seen all 4 of them. I'm
3.5.
counting Once Upon a Deadpool as a separate one.
It took me a second to get there.
Yeah.
I have not, therefore, seen all 4 of them because I've only seen Once Upon a Deadpool.
Not Deadpool 2?
I have not seen Deadpool 2. I've only seen the PG-rated version, and then I watched Deadpool 3 because Deadpool 2 was so good.
Yeah.
So, and I haven't actually seen 1.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I always meant to get to it, and I just never did. And it's like, there's lots of good things to see.
Yeah.
But I was really interested in Once Upon a Deadpool. For those who don't know, when Fox got acquired by Disney, Ryan Reynolds and the team who were making the Deadpool movies wanted to prove to Disney that Deadpool could be PG. And they recut Deadpool 2 to be PG.
Yeah.
Which would have just flopped utterly if they hadn't come up with the brilliant premise of Deadpool kidnapping Fred Savage in real life, who was the kid from Princess Bride, and then making a storybook of Deadpool 2 that he could tell to Fred Savage, who he didn't want to include the really gory parts because Fred Savage is, is a kid, even though he's a grown adult in this and duct taped to his bed.
So there's this whole frame story running through it of Deadpool reading the story, just like Grandpa reading the story in Princess Bride. It is actually my favorite of the Deadpool movies. Deadpool 2 is my second favorite.
Okay.
I do think that adding the Fred Savage frame story improved on it. But both versions of that movie are my favorite Deadpool movies.
Interesting. So have you read any of the comics?
I haven't really. I'm familiar with him. I know he's there. I know he breaks the fourth wall. I did read some of the Marvel Zombie stuff that had Deadpool in it, but not. I'm not really a comic Deadpool guy.
Okay. Yeah, I read some of Christopher Hastings did some Deadpool. He's Dr. McNinja.
Oh yeah,
and then he went on and wrote Gwenpool. But he's a very good writer, and so I read some of his stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, how to start?
Between 2 and 3 that you've seen, which do you prefer?
I prefer 2.
Okay.
Once Upon a Deadpool. As you say, that layer of the frame story. Plus, that's one that like Emily watched with me. She really liked it. But there's a level of violence and gore that is beyond Emily's threshold, and she knew that without the PG edit, she wouldn't. And so she didn't want to watch 3, which is totally fine. So I watched it without her. Watching a movie with my wife is more fun than watching it on my own.
Yeah.
And so that also enhanced the experience. I did genuinely really like 3. But I like 3, and I guess I won't bury the lead. I really like Hugh Jackman, as we have talked about before.
Yeah.
I think he's just there. I really enjoy Hugh Jackman on screen. Hugh Jackman playing this now different version of Wolverine. It's like his 3rd or 4th incarnation of Wolverine, even though all the others were technically the same continuity, and this one, I guess technically, but the same. Those were all the same character. It's like the Wolverine from Old Man Logan. What did they call that?
Just Logan.
Logan, yeah. The Wolverine from Old Man Logan is a different character than the others.
Yeah, a very different take on it.
Yeah, even though it's supposed to be the same person. Watching him play this jaded failure version was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I got so much of a kick out of that. That made the movie for me. It's strange. It might have been like, I don't know if Deadpool value added to the 3rd movie that much, but I did very much enjoy that part.
Yeah,
and a lot of
he was
3.
great in it. He was the emotional heart of it.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that, ironically, I do really like about the Deadpool movies is that they do have a strong emotional heart, which I can't say about every MCU movie.
Yeah, or even every Ryan Reynolds movie, right?
Yeah.
Like somehow he knows, because he's made these with 3 different directors, I believe, or at least 2 different directors. But I think the third one was Sean Levy.
You were correct.
And then the first one was what's his name, who owns Blur.
I know this.
I've had like 3 meetings with him.
It's
Super
Tim
nice
Miller.
guy, Tim Miller. And I don't know who made the second one.
I can figure that out. It's David Lynch.
Okay. What?
It's David Leitch.
Okay, I heard Lynch.
Yeah,
No, he's not Lynch.
And I'm like, there's no way that's a David
No.
Lynch
It's
movie.
the guy that did like Bullet Train, Fall Guy.
Okay. And so 3 different directors with kind of Ryan Reynolds being the actual kind of creative force behind them. And he knows you need that emotional heart. You need to care. And he makes it hard for you to care. So he has to work equally hard or even harder to actually do so.
Okay. So you really liked 3.
Yes.
3 is my least favorite of the 3.
And I haven't seen 1, so I wouldn't be able to rank it, but I did really like 3. I can talk about why.
My problem with 3 is that it's not small stakes. 1 and 2 are relatively small stakes.
Yep.
And 3 became very MCU in that it had to put all of existence at peril, and it wasn't the small story of Deadpool learning some valuable lesson.
Yeah.
It was this big grandiose story with a lot of fight scenes in it, and I enjoyed it, but it didn't feel as complete to me.
I can see that.
Yeah.
That's a very valid kind of criticism of it. I will say that because the multiverse stuff killed the MCU for me, it seems like the only MCU things I've been able to sincerely enjoy are the ones that have to take that into account, if that makes sense. It's hard for me. So if this was going to be in the MCU, which this is the first one that is
technically MCU.
Technically MCU, then therefore, because of that, I feel like you either have to address it, or I'm going to have trouble bonding to your film because I feel like the multiverse stuff has just messed up the MCU too much.
Yeah, and I agree. It really has. I thought I liked the way it brought in like Jennifer Garner and Channing Tatum and stuff.
Like and I think that's part of why I liked it too. Cameos like this. Deadpool 3 has a great moment where Deadpool meets Nicepool, which is just Deadpool played by Ryan Reynolds with long, gorgeous hair and acting as a super nice guy instead of a jerk. And Deadpool makes, is like kind of down on Nicepool. But Nicepool's like, hey, I'm cool. I can do it too. And he like looks at the camera and he says, "The Proposal." Right, which is a Ryan Reynolds movie, right? And then Deadpool's like, "That's not what I do." No, and they like walk off. He's like, no, my jokes are better than that. And they're calling attention to the fact that a reference itself is meaningless. And indeed, Deadpool does a bunch of these.
Yeah.
And those are, we're all tired of them, right? That style. But when Deadpool 3 also shows how to do them well, which is in bringing back Blade and Elektra and Channing Tatum, who never got to be.
Who was cast as Gambit, but then the movie was canceled. What it does is it's like, we are going to give these people their cool ending. And X20, whatever her name is, the X23.
We're going to say we haven't forgotten. And so like, I like the Blade movies. And I'm fond of them. Not really fond of Elektra, but that wasn't her fault. Yeah. And seeing Channing Tatum get to play his Gambit and seeing X23 come back, which from an excellent movie that it's like was in limbo.
And she was so good in it.
Yes. And so like it's more than a cameo. It's catharsis and saying, we understand. Here you get to see these people be cool. And they wrote them cool. Unlike, unfortunately, the cameo for, in Multiverse of Madness, where it's just like, here's these people. You clap because you see Professor X again, and then he gets murdered violently and has very little effect on anything. Isn't that fun? No, that was not fun. I hated that part of that movie.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like, hey, we live in a place where people who are lost are found. It's a metaphor for these films being lost. We now join together and get a chance to fight to protect this thing that's going to like reestablish a universe. It's all metaphorically very cool.
Yeah,
and
it is.
It's really thoughtful and interesting from a storyteller's perspective. And if you're like, why would Brandon watch a Deadpool movie? Brandon doesn't write things anything like a Deadpool movie. Well, it's for moments like this, right?
Yeah.
That, I mean, I can't recommend that every listener go see it. You'll know if you want to see this movie. It is crass and violent. But also it's made by someone who's very passionate, and a group of people who are very passionate, trying to make the type of art they want to make. And there are things to learn from that I find very interesting as a storyteller.
Yeah. Well, and just that very careful selection. Not that there's a huge array of other comic characters they could have chosen, but Wesley Snipes started the modern superhero craze.
Yep.
He is the godfather. Yep. Bringing him back to show respect is the first good step.
Right. And then letting him say, there's no Blade but me, right?
Yeah.
There will never be another Blade. Like,
And then Elektra, arguably one of the worst superhero movies ever made.
Yep.
Choosing that and choosing her rather than Ben Affleck was just a really good choice.
Right.
And then Channing Tatum, who never even got to make his movie, that was so smart. Just
right.
Yeah.
And the next 23, the one that we all wanted to see
A
more
follow-up of.
right? Because the film was so good. It's 4 different genres of forgotten Marvel non-MCU films. And then with, the fun little nod to the Fantastic Four movies, which is one of the best cameos in all of cameodom.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that made me like the movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it did a good job with its choices. It fell into, and this is my problem with a lot of MCU movies, is Act 3 is just boring.
Yeah.
Because here's the huge monster, and we're going to see a bunch of special effects, and then you're going to win. Whereas, like, the ending of Deadpool 2 was, no, I have reached the point where I'm willing to sacrifice my own life to save this troubled kid. It's not the existence at peril. It's not the world at peril. It's not even the city at peril. It's one kid, and it's the kid from Hunt for the Wilder People.
Yes.
And we all love him, and he's an incredible actor. And it's just, that line of you need to get your heart in the right place.
I mean, that is
turning that into taking a bullet, which is a clever twist.
That is what why 2 is better than 3. Well, I don't think you can objectively say that, but subjectively, why we agree.
Yeah, why we like it better.
Why we like it better. But let's point out, could you do that again with Deadpool? I mean,
I think you could.
They got away with it twice with Tony Stark, maybe 3 times. But as much as I love the ending of Endgame, part of me is like, you're having him do the same arc that he had at the end of Avengers 1. Which is kind of his same arc all the way through. Oh, Tony is selfish. No, Tony will sacrifice himself for the world.
Yeah. And okay, I don't necessarily mean to say that you could have Deadpool sacrifice his life again. But I enjoyed how the first 2 were essentially small stakes stories about him and how much he loves his wife.
Yeah.
That's what the first one's about. That's what the second one's about. The third one abandons his entire cast of other characters.
They make some cameos, but yeah.
Yeah.
To go on a road trip movie with Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman.
Now, one thing I will argue, again, I'm playing devil's advocate because I agree with you. I like then calling it Deadpool and Wolverine. You could still make a Deadpool 3 that is with the same supporting cast, more of them doing the same story you want. Instead, in the middle, you just have Deadpool goes on a road trip with Wolverine.
Yeah.
And yes, the ending does have some of those same problems, but it doesn't at the same time, in that there's a couple of very cool things from the ending. Wolverine, even in Logan, never got to be the terrifying force that he is in the comics ever in any of his movies, because you can't show that much violence. He has to play a good guy, and in Logan he's fallen apart, and he can do. But what you couldn't ever have before was the scene where Deadpool and Wolverine ripped through 300 Deadpools.
Yeah,
and a lot of comics fans, I could appreciate it from an aesthetic level. It's not my thing, but I can appreciate finally giving the fans that chance where Wolverine walks around the corner and just goes to town.
Just goes nuts.
And that's a cool thing to have given the fans who love Wolverine that they just never got.
Absolutely. And I do love the choreography of that fight scene. And the music for that fight scene was very carefully chosen.
Right down to Deadpool falling down at the end and letting Wolverine stand and have his moment. Like, number one, it's a joke. It's a jokey joke, but it's one of these jokey jokes that still means something because he's out of the shot. And then Wolverine gets to stand there, and this was his moment. And
he's the one that has the character arc in the movie.
Yes, and Ryan Reynolds, I gained a lot of respect for him watching this movie because he plays the same character, right? And people complain about that. But when he's really in charge of the movie, he let everyone else steal the show. He let the forgotten characters have cooler moments than him, and during the big fight, he just drops out of the scene literally at the end to let Wolverine, and it's framed showing Wolverine in the foreground for us in the long take. It's like I am giving this moment to him, even though people are coming.
Even though it's a buddy movie with both of us. I remember when I watched the very first Ninja Turtles movie. I watched it with my dad.
Okay.
And at the end I was like, wasn't that amazing? All the martial arts and stuff. And he said, half the Ninja Turtles fight with bladed weapons.
Yes.
There should have been arms everywhere. And I always think about that when I watch Wolverine in any of the other movies.
Yes.
Because his primary thing is blades. And yet we go through all the X-Men movies without really seeing dismemberments and blood. He uses them to fight, but it's very tame.
I appreciate that because I can watch them with my family. But for those of you who like this, you have the Deadpool movies. And now you have Deadpool and Wolverine.
And now we've seen the full use of the blades.
Yes.
It did get to be too much for me. Okay. There's at least 2 fights that are just these 2 people with blades and healing factor are going to beat each other up for 10 minutes. And I don't know. It was too much.
They're kind of funny. I'm surprised you're saying that.
One of them was funny.
Okay.
Then they did the second one, and I was like, we already did this fight.
Okay.
Just because it's in a van this time.
The van. See, that's the one where I thought you would like it. Because again, violence and gore is not as much my thing as it is yours. And that one felt like an Andy Kaufman joke. That they intentionally put it in and had it go longer so that you passed past discomfort to laughing at how ridiculous it was they were going so long. And that was at least my experience. I'm like, oh, another fight between them. Oh, this one's going long. Oh, this is... And then I started chuckling. And then I just started chuckling more because it just kept going. And then eventually at the end, they're both wrapped in the seatbelts and lying there. And I thought it was legitimately funny for Andy Kaufman-esque reasons.
And I don't doubt that most people agree with you rather than me. That's how these things typically go. For me, it was just, okay, we've seen this premise already.
Yeah.
Show us something new.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so glad that at the end, they didn't do that with all the other Deadpools, except for the final joke where they all stand up again. It wasn't the let's fight a bunch of people who can't die.
Yeah. And I did, they didn't 100% stick the landing, but they 95%. The ending is the same kind of ending of Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, which...
Just let's hold hands and resist energy.
But it still worked for me. Again, Guardians of the Galaxy does it so much better because, but they both have the same theme. We need to get together to save things. It still worked for me.
I saw a really interesting interview with the film editor that worked on Deadpool 3. And he talked specifically about that last scene and how Ryan Reynolds wanted the Madonna song. And I can't remember, was it Like a Virgin or was it Like a Prayer? I think Like a Prayer was one of them. It was the big fight, and then there was a different one for the holding hands scene. Anyway, on the holding hands scene, Reynolds had this very specific request for a very specific Madonna song, and the editor was like, I can do better than this. And he picked some other hard rock song and edited it really tightly and hated it. He's like, this is just a music video. And putting in the Madonna song instead gave it emotional power that the hard rock song didn't have.
I think for me, it worked because they managed to sell the fake out that it wasn't going to be the two of them, right? That Wolverine was completing his arc by locking Ryan Reynolds out, and it was going to be him or vice versa, whoever it was. Right? One of them locked the other one out.
Deadpool locked Wolverine out.
Locked Wolverine out. Yeah, that's what it was. I believed enough with suspension of disbelief that that it was going to be because Wolverine needed to live, because if he didn't, then the reality vanishes. So you do get your moment of Deadpool giving himself for everyone, but it's not as personal because it's for the whole. But and then him coming back, they cut it just right that I was able to suspend disbelief just long enough that it coming together worked for me.
Cool.
So
yeah. I don't know. For me, it was just a special effects ending. You know, the 1 and 2 have much more powerful endings because the story is smaller.
Yeah. And I will just make the argument: it's not just a special effects ending because it's not about people punching each other. It's about self-sacrifice and making decisions. And anytime an ending involves making decisions or culmination of character arc, I think it's a stronger ending.
That is true. That is a very good point.
And so it's not like the disappointment that, even though it's a great movie, that the ending of Iron Man 1 is, right? Though, you know what? No, Iron Man 1 works because I didn't necessarily need to see Iron Man and Jeff Bridges punch each other. But Iron Man does win by knowing the system better than Jeff Bridges, if you remember that one.
Yeah, he wins by being smart.
He wins by being smart. So I'll retract that. But there are some that the ending just feels like two people punching each other, and there aren't decisions. There aren't, Black Panther strays a little bit into this. Excellent film that the end is who can punch each other the hardest. Though it does have the philosophy end that once they've punched each other hard enough, they get to
sit
have
and watch the sunrise. So there you go.
Yeah, biggest offender is probably WandaVision, which is one of my favorite things in all the MCU. That does end with giant CGI fights.
Giant CGI fight at the end while they fly around.
And they tried to make it work, and I still like some of the things they did, but it's like you have this really thoughtful, strange and interesting thing that then ends with the giant CGI fight.
Yeah. So, and that's just an MCU problem in general, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's a superhero problem, right? Like these characters are super strong. That's part of their thing. They have a nemesis who is an inverse of them. They're going to have to use all of their powers and things against them. How else, you've got to have that scene.
Yeah.
So how do you make it both work and give us the thing that pretty obviously we do need at some point?
Arguably my favorite ending of any MCU movie is actually the first Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that's
because it is all about cleverness.
About cleverness and about kind of Strange's one of his things is he's just stubborn. He gets to learn because he's so stubborn. Yeah. And he puts that stubbornness to play in a brilliant way. It is one of the best.
What were you going to say, Donald?
I have two things now. Question one would be, what is your guys' favorite MCU film, since we're already on this?
So I have to divide them between standalones and team-ups.
Okay.
Right? Or single character and team-ups. My favorite single character one is actually Doctor Strange 1.
Okay.
Really?
I'm a fantasy guy. I love the magic, and the use of the magic in it is really cool.
It is.
I like all the supporting cast. I really like Wong. He cracks me up. I like the ending. The ending comes together. I like the villain. And so I think my favorite standalone is that one.
Okay. And your favorite of the
team up?
My favorite of the team up. That
ones?
one is actually harder. Because when I think about them, Avengers 1 is so tight, right? And Avengers 1 did something that had not yet been done successfully. Mm-hmm. And that is so good. But then the Infinity War is our Empire Strikes Back. It is an excellently made film that ends as we kind of worried it would, but really just sticks that landing so well. And then Civil War is probably the strongest just script and cinematography.
Civil War is my pick.
Civil War is your pick for favorite?
Civil War but then you have you have Civil War, not just Civil War. Do you count Winter Soldier? You probably don't, right?
No, Winter Soldier's a Captain America film.
So you've got all of those things. These days I'm usually leaning toward Infinity War. Okay. Just because I like it as this giant capstone that leads to the victory lap that is Endgame. Mm-hmm. But I have trouble picking between those three.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this before. You like Infinity War more than I do.
Yeah.
Endgame is probably my favorite of the story arc ones. There's just so many moments in it that are... you stand up and cheer.
Yeah.
I've never in my life had that theater experience where the entire audience is cheering together so many times as in Endgame.
You're right. I might have to elevate it above. When Captain America gets the hammer, there's I haven't been in a theater and had an experience like that, and we might never again. Mm-hmm. So I'll let you persuade me.
Well, see, that's what you said last time we talked about this. So it's just for today, and I know you'll go back to Infinity War.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I probably am going to have to say my favorite standalone is First Avenger.
Okay.
The first Captain America.
Oh, okay.
I just wish the second half of First Avenger were stronger. The first half is some of the best in the whole MCU, but the end, it is just guys fighting.
Yeah.
And Red Skull is, in that film, I feel, a waste of Hugo Weaving. He hams it up, and so it's not a complete waste. Mm-hmm. But there's so much more you can do with Hugo Weaving.
Well, and I have to admit that the end of First Avenger is deeply weird.
Yeah.
Because it's a standalone movie, and then the last 2 minutes of it are, actually, you're part of this series. And what should have been a post-credit scene is the climax of the movie, and it's just, it doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. I totally admit that.
Yeah.
But I love the World War II stuff so much.
It is really good.
I love scrawny little Steve Rogers jumping on the grenade. I love Stanley Tucci as the scientist.
Yeah. And
Haley Atwell. I love her in everything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's definitely one of the strongest. I don't think I could even put it second, though, because Thor Ragnarok would be second for me.
Ragnarok is really, really good.
Right? And I don't know if I can, in good conscience, even put it over Iron Man.
That was my pick.
Which are
the first Iron Man?
First Iron Man.
First Iron Man's my pick.
Is so consistently good.
Yeah.
And I know people are down on the other two, but I think all three Iron Man films are just consistently good.
Yeah.
They're not like the Thor movies that have weakest entries and strongest entries in the MCU.
All in the same one.
In the same one.
I don't love Iron Man 2. I really love Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Even before I had an anxiety disorder, watching him deal with that was very fresh, I think.
2 was really hampered, as I understand. Maybe I'm outside, but really hampered by them not letting it be the alcoholism arc from the comics.
Yeah. They flirted with it, but they didn't go all the way.
Yep. Instead, they had to make it blood poisoning from his thing. And so, but then in 3, we get deep character stuff for him. It does make 2 the weakest. Mm-hmm. But
okay, so final question.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite superhero movie that is not one of the ones we just discussed?
I am very fond of the original Christopher Reeves Superman. Mm-hmm. Even the weird poetry omniscience in Lois Lane's head, and even the dumb ending. I don't love the dumb ending, but I'm just very fond of that movie.
It's a really good movie.
let's see, what else that we haven't mentioned that I really like?
The most the highest rated one online is Dark Knight.
Dark Knight. I would probably list Dark Knight as the best. Dark Knight is better than any solo MCU film.
I would put Dark Knight as my second favorite superhero movie of all time. For my very top, I have to go back to Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
With Doc Ock. And
Spider-Man 2 is really good.
That one just works for me so well.
It is very good. I would put Dark Knight above it. But I would put Spider-Man 2 probably above any MCU solo film, even above Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And just,
And then as sad as it is, I'd probably put Across the Spider-Verse and then Endgame.
Would you? Okay.
Yeah, if that would be my top 4.
I think I have to get an ending to the Spider-Verse ones before I can, in good conscience, do that.
That's how I feel too.
Well, Across the Spider-Verse stands alone really well, I think.
Are you saying into or across?
Oh, sorry. Is it Into the Spider-Verse?
Into's the first one.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
I actually didn't really like the second one.
Okay. I really like the second one, but yeah, that's what I thought with you. We're getting into how hard it is because Endgame, being a culmination of so many films, gains so much weight that it's hard for me to rank anything above it. Really counting those as 2 movies as one. But anyway, that's why I put them in different categories.
Yeah, that's true. If we can count Infinity War and Endgame as a single movie, that is my top without question.
I think we kind of have to.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just say from now on, remind us if we do. When we inevitably digress into doing this again, fans, you can tell us. All right, there's our thoughts on Deadpool, which turned into our thoughts on
superhero movies in general.
Yeah. So, how's that, Ben?